Welcome back to ESBR Boxing's YouTube channel. Delighted as always to be joined by Elliot Stott. We are in final prediction mode, mate. Before we get into it, as always, if you're new to the channel, if you're watching this video for the first time and you haven't stumbled across us before, please do check out the rest of our content. Hit the like button, hit subscribe. There's a little icon in the corner that'll show you all the directions you need to do to subscribe. But yeah, we've got you all of your boxing needs under one roof, which includes previews, reviews, interviews with fighters, big fight breakdowns, reaction videos, so on and so forth, as well as final predictions, which is why we are here. And we are down under in Australia, Elliot, for an IBF World Middleweight title fight between the champion JANIBEK ALIMKHANULY against ANDREI MIKHAILOVICH. I hope I haven't butchered either of those two names, quite the mouthful. But yeah, big fight in the middleweight division, mate. What is your final prediction for this one as we go down under to Sydney?
Yeah, good stuff. Thank you very much for having me, Paul. As always, it's a more intriguing fight than it was when it was supposed to happen. I think just because of JANIBEK obviously having to go to the hospital, it was a serious. Obviously, yeah, it was pretty serious if he had to go to the hospital. But obviously we're filming this after the weigh-in, and looks like he's looking good at middleweight to me. Mikhailovich is how I'm going to say this person's name again. Apologies as always. I think he looks very kind of pumped up for this, but my issue is like I don't think there are many boxing fans who recognise a name on his record. Not fought out of Australia. So yeah, I think in his one thing I would say about him, I think in his last 8 fights, 7 of them have been stoppage wins, so he can clearly bang a bit, as can JANIBEK. However, I can't see past JANIBEK for this one. I think JANIBEK and Hamza Shiraz are the two best middleweights in the world. And I'm expecting JANIBEK, who can be hot or cold sometimes. I believe he arrived into Australia quite late this week. I don't know why, but that's been kind of reported on by a couple of people. But I still think he will win in the first half of the fight.
Very, very interesting, mate. Very interesting. I think the way you were talking there about Mikhailovich being pumped up, yeah, totally agree. You kind of took the words out of my mouth. A few of the things that you mentioned there. I agree with who you have the victor in this fight. I think that yeah, he's got a good record on paper, Mikhailovich. But when you actually dig a little deeper, as you mentioned, there's a lot of names that nobody's ever heard of, and that's maybe just because we're not privy to the we're not as knowledgeable on boxing all the rest around the world as we maybe would be in the UK. But there's not really a name that you say, oh right, he was even a former world champion, or oh yeah, I recognize he was fringe world level. That's not really the case. As you mentioned, hasn't really fought outside of Australia either, and like I suppose that won't really matter because this is in Australia. If so, that you can kind of maybe disregard that point. But at the same time, hate saying it because I don't want to disrespect some other fighters, but I just think his record is so padded. Like it is really, really padded record. And yeah, ALIMKHANULY, you obviously had, as you mentioned, and you alluded to at the top of this video, had the problems the last time when this was meant to happen. So there's a narrative going in, but yeah, I think he looks decent. I think that he's clearly the better fighter here. I think he's clearly, if you don't have him in your top 5 of the middleweight division, there's probably a question why. I also agree with you. I have him in my top 3, even a top 2, up there with Hamza Shiraz and even Eric Landy-Lara, a couple of other names like that. I think he is the real deal. I think that this is a very one-sided fight, and I actually have written down here as well when I was doing more of research. I said JANIBEK, Mikhailovich will not see the bell at the end of the 6th round. So I agree with what you've said. I'm going first half of the fight, which is funny because if you are watching this, we do not have a clue what each other are saying. So yeah, take from that what you will. We could either both be talking absolute nonsense and have egg on our face come Friday night or whenever after the fight. But yeah, what makes you so confident, Elliot, that this fight won't last more than the halfway mark? We did mention obviously that he has a padded record and so on and so forth, but a few times lately we kind of thought ALIMKHANULY would maybe run through a few fighters. Of course, Denzel Bentley took him a little later than a lot of people. A lot of people thought. What makes you so confident that he's going to get the job done fairly quickly?
Yeah, I think for me, one of my criticisms about JANIBEK is he is hot and cold. Denzel Bentley was not a good performance. However, we saw him against Danny Dignam, Stephen Butler, and he looks like a monster. It was very destructive. And if that Janibek turns up, I think this fight's over in 3 rounds, let alone 6. In terms of why I'm confident, no, like I rate the guy, I rate the guy highly. I think he's a fantastic fighter. Um, I think he'll be frustrated with what happened last time as well. He was all ready to fight, and then the day, obviously the day before the fight gets called off, he'll be frustrated that like he's not obviously not been paid. He has had a wasted training camp. And also I think you'll maybe have people questioning, is he still the best at middleweight? Should he still be at middleweight? Is he kind of fully fit to be in the ring? People will be asking all sort of questions. There's a lot more intrigue on this fight than there was whatever date it was in my opinion pool. So in terms of why I'm so confident, that's it. I think Janibek will want to kind of shut a few people up, and I also think Janibek, another criticism of him, not necessarily of him, but his kind of career so far, we've not really seen him in a big fight yet, if we're being honest. And I think now he is teetering on being in a big fight. I would like to think whether that's against um, one of the other champions at 160, maybe Hamza Shiraz. Um, yeah, so I think those factors combined, you're going to get a motivated Janibek. And sorry to go on, but another reason is he's going to Australia. He's going to this guy's backyard. Surely that's going to motivate someone. You've got the opportunity to go to this person's home country and get booed into the ring and shut a lot of people up.
Yeah, mate, for sure, for sure. Without turning it obviously into the betting show like we sometimes have on the channel, if I
Mm.
was to force you to pick one round, what round are you going for Zanibek to win this?
Um, for no real reason, I'll go round 4.
Okay, interesting. Well, for those gamblers out there, that's roughly 10-1 is odds I'm seeing if you're going for the individual round. I'll go one later. I'll go round 5, which is around 9-1, I think. But yeah, I mean, interesting. Very, very interesting. We shall see. Just before we wrap it up, mate. Again, we don't really. Sometimes we could be looking very stupid if Zanibek loses here. But I do quickly want to touch on just at the end of this video. What do you want to see him do next, and what do you think he's going to do next? 2025, it'll be probably after this the next time he fights. Is it unifications or is it a fight with the likes of Hamza Shiraz, Chris Eubank Jr.? What do you want him to do?
I would love to see him fight Hamza Shiraz in terms of what I want him to do. That's kind of what I want him to do. Hamza Shiraz is ranked number 1 with the WBO. I think Hamza Shiraz wins personally. I think they're the two best in the division. So yeah, in a nutshell, that's kind of it. And I'm not just saying that because that's what I want next for Janibek. That's what I want next for Hamza Shiraz. Hamza Shiraz feels like he's been teetering on fighting for a world title for a little while now. And it's about time that happens. So that's what I want. Yeah, Hamza Shiraz, Janibek, 2025. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed, absolutely, mate. Totally agree. And if maybe Shiraz gets a fight against one of the other champions, then yeah, why not get Zanibek in unifications himself? And yeah, hopefully this middleweight division catches fire in 2025 because we all know how good it can be. Elliot, we'll leave it there. Thanks very much for joining me as always. As I said, guys, please do drop a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, drop us a comment on your thoughts on this fight, and yeah, the middleweight division as a whole as well going forward. Elliot, thanks very much for joining me, and I'll speak to you again soon.